Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire in the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined with a very special guest. She is a speaker, coach, and mentor, Bobby Barrington. How you doing today, Bobby?
G'day, Ryan. I'm fabulous. I'm on the beautiful Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. I'm just north of Brisbane, for those who know this area. And literally 5 minutes from my door here, I'm on the beach. And I adore the beach and the energy of the beach and this environment. It's a beautiful part of the world if you ever want to make your way over here.
So the number one question the audience has probably wondered, who is Bobby Barrington?
Well, yeah, I'm 65 and I'm a single woman, and I have changed everything, absolutely everything about me to become the woman I am today. Because when I say everything, I've been through two massive transitions. One is my gender and one is my mindset. So I am a trans woman, and I transitioned around the age of 59 or 60 in that period, and now I'm 65, so it's very recent. So I lived like the first 6 years of my life as a man with the traditions of being a man and how I was socialized and the environment that I grew up in. And now I'm a woman, and it is so extraordinary. It's such a transformation. And I would love to talk more about that if we have time for that. But my gender transition is really the small one. That's the easy one. It's done. I get to live the rest of my life in a body I adore, in the skin that I feel so comfortable in. But now the big transition, and the one that will resonate with most of the audience, because my message isn't about gender or anyone's life choices. My message is about mindset, creating our own realities, belief, unlocking the best of us, living our truths. And that has liberated me like nothing else. I feel so happy, so fulfilled, and so very free now as a single woman. I'm divorced. I've lost my family. I've lost my marriage. I've lost dreams I've once had. I've lost a ton of money through legal processes just, a couple of months ago. And yet here I am, still standing, still walking through the fire, and I don't want it any other way. Like I want to know. I want to know what I'm capable of on this one life, this one time on this planet, this bright, shining being that is me, that is all of us. Who can we be? And that excites me so much. Like the me I create for tomorrow. What can she do? Who can she be? Who could she not be? And I have control over that. I have choices, and I get to show up every day as the woman I want to be. And it's work, and it never ends, and I don't want it to end, because this journey of exploration, the discovery of who I am, is the best. I was going to say a word that starts with F. I don't know if your audience.
You go ahead and do whatever you need to do.
This is my culture. This is, like I really want to talk about us getting out of our boxes, getting out of the constraints that we put ourselves in, that society puts us in, and we agree to, by and large. And some of that is our language and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. It's all made up. There is no right or wrong. It's just like society says you can't use that word. I was in Melbourne recently. Melbourne's like 1,000 k's south of here, in Victoria, and it's winter there. And the culture is so suppressing, I found. Up here where I am, there's so much freedom in expression. Like this is winter. Look at me. I'm in wintertime. I adore this, this weather, which is so freeing. And so, the clothes we wear, the rules that surround us, like, oh, you can't go out wearing that, people will talk, or, I don't want the neighbors to think I'm running a brothel, this happened. But I just want us to get out of these made up constraints that keep us stuck in a reality that isn't truth. So this is massive part of my message and what I want to talk about. Liberation, Ryan. Liberating our souls and our hearts and our minds and living our truth. Yeah, so
yeah,
that?
Like I can understand a lot where you're coming from, where you're like, we as people allow society and other people to put us in boxes and tell us what we can and can't do. So then we start developing them limiting beliefs about ourselves and what we can and can't do, and they start holding us back, and we become constrained by fear. So
totally.
How was fear? Like, could you talk about the fear that held you back from living the life you were meant to?
Oh, look, like, if I look at my life, I look at the language that I've used through my life. Fright, always frightened through my life. Limitation, stuck. Fear of standing out, fear of being seen, fear of using my voice, fear of attracting attention. And my money mindset has been like so crappy through my whole life. And so this is what I mean about the big transition. It's not about the gender or the expression, even though that was a massive part of me claiming my authenticity, but this overcoming childhood trauma, an alcoholic father, a household that was emotionally suppressed, I suppose. It was, I learnt to find safety through not standing out, like not attracting attention, and it made me an introvert or act like an introvert through my life. It, like, even into my 50s, late 40s, 50s, like, if I look at the things that I used to do because I was frightened of attracting attention, I'm just starting to write my next book at the moment, and I'm going to call it Live Your Truth. It's about finding freedom through authenticity, and about where that showed up before and what changed and what it looks like now. And I look at, going back into my history, like stupid things. Like I lived in London for a long time, London, England. And I remember even into my 40s as a grown man, not wanting to stand up and open the damn vent in the tube carriage because people would see me. And I think, that is, excuse me, that is fucked. That is so, and who else has got these stories running in their heads about what other people will think, and your inherent worthiness. So really, I look back at my life and I know that you can say, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be who I was today. And it was all a gift. And there was nothing wrong about any of it. But I look back and I feel so sad, and what a waste, what a waste of those years when I thought I'm not a happy person. And now I am. And the change has been so quick. Just a few years, I've changed everything. And this new mindset that I now have through doing work, through being coachable, through finding a coach, through consistently every day being devoted to becoming the best I can be, And that means going into the hard places. It means facing up to the emotions. It means not running away from them or medicating them, or, you know, I used to have, well, I had mental health plans. I would sit in my doctor's office and cry and cry. I had psychologists. I was on antidepressants, and I'd work my way through cartons of wine, casks of wine, just to numb the pain and wish it would go away. And it never went away by doing any of that. It went away through showing up and doing the work and really being honest and truthful to myself about what is going on and what is triggering me, and about what choices am I going to make now about it, because now I'm aware. That piece, awareness, choice, commitment, action, persistence, these are the key fundamentals to meaningful change in my experience and as a coach. And responsibility, being responsible for every part of my life. And now I show up strong, powerful, creating my own reality, irrespective of what's going on around me, of what happens, of what the fucking lawyers do to me, who cuts me off in traffic, who pushes in front of me in the queue, what letter or email comes that challenges me. I'm not there yet. There is still stuff I avoid. There is still stuff that I am frightened to go into. And yet that's where I have to go. That's where I have to step to confront that demon, if you like, to grow through it and to calm my nervous system. This has been a massive part too. My nervous system, my fight, flight, fright response, and turning that into calmness and equanimity and my capacity to hold the tension between where I am and where I want to go. And all of that package, it's not overnight, but it has been quick. It has been quick relative to my life. Yeah, so a life of fear, scarcity, pain, grief, trauma, struggle, those things still exist. Those things will never go away, but the meaning that I give to them is different. The stories that I tell about my past are different. And the stories I get to create now, because it's all a story, the stories I get to create about what my life has been like and what it's turning into, I get to write that. I got the pen, I write the story. We all write the story. And that's really that's really my message, that message of possibility. It's incredible what's impossible for us as human beings. Like it's our capacity to expand, it's limitless. I believe that what is locked inside of us, we are hardly touching yet. I think, we, like in Australia, we have massive mining industry here, of course. But my belief is that the biggest untapped resource is human potential, and what is trapped inside of us, and what is the cost of keeping that suppressed because of the stories we tell, the fears we have, that I'm not good enough, that's not for me. I'm an introvert, like it goes on and on. If you start to really get inquisitive about what your internal dialogue is, and start to get curious about, is that true? Is that really true? And start to unlock the grip on the reality that is your identity, and start to prise it open and question it and say, maybe not. What if? What if I could unlock the best of me? What if I could let those talents and passions and what excites us and lights us up about our lives and living, what if we could start to let that loose a little bit? Who could I be? What could life look like? And people will say to me, Bobby, get real. That's not how the real world works. That's how your real world works, not mine. I get to choose.
Wow, I love it. I mean, it sounds like you went like through quite a bit of transformation in this short amount of time.
So much.
So, what inspired you to start coaching now?
How can I not share? Like, I feel like I've discovered the Holy Grail, like I've made dreams come true. How can I not share that? When I look around and I look at our society, and right now, oh my God, stuff that's happening in the world, it just like so saddens me. And what is the thinking that has led to that situation? And what is the, like I go to the supermarket, and you look at the faces around you, and people are living this life of less than, settling, like that's my lot. I can't ever expect to have more. That's a dream. That's not reality, Bobby. And it is if you believe it, and it's not if you believe that too. And so how can I not? And when I see the people who they start to get it, they start to, those aha moments, those penny drop moments, what a joy that is when somebody starts to get visibility of the narrative of their life and starts to repurpose it into a new and up, elevated reality. When people start, that is such a joy, and I feel like I've lived this life for a reason. My best client is myself 2 versions ago.
Can you explain that?
Who I was, a couple of years back, 3 years, 5 years ago, that person, she would be my best client. People like me, people like all through those years, those 60 years, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to run my own business. I never wanted anyone else to tell me when I could start, when I ended, when I could take holidays, when I could go to the toilet, stuff like that. Never, ever wanted that. And so I was a contractor, and so I studied accountancy, which was so not me. This is people pleasing. This is because of emotional pressure from my father. So I spent 40 years in the wrong career. I was an accountant, a project manager, a business analyst. I used to implement software, mostly in the UK, in the railways. So I had a lot of experience in capital intensive industries like that. So I've got business experience in change, if you like. But that me, she never gave up. She always wanted more. She always believed there was more for her one day. And that belief that there is more, that kept pulling me, even in the tough times, which was like decades of them, to be honest. But I would sit on the tube in London, go to the job that I hated and didn't understand, and read business books. That was me reading how to do the thing, not how to be the person. And that was the key, who we are, how we show up, what is our thinking, what is our attitude to life, more than the tasks, the process, the doing, and But I always wanted more. And then I went to some personal development. I went to like Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, Robert Kiyosaki, Blair Singer, these sorts of people. And I went into those rooms and I started to get some insight into the internal work. Like Ryan, when people say you've got to do the work on yourself. And I thought, what does that mean? I don't know what that means, doing the work on myself. And now I do. And I was looking for my passion. And I looked everywhere. I looked, under the cushions in the sofa. And I looked behind the fridge. And that's not where it was. And this coach
Always
said
inside
to me, hey, coach said to me, Bobby, that's where it is, right there, over your heart. And I didn't know what he meant by that either. And so I kept looking. And that process, that step by step, always wanting to be drawn towards the vision, towards the belief, that even when times were tough, I was still optimistic there was something there for me at some point. Because I knew I'm a smart person, but I'm a smart person who was locked into a mindset of doing, forcing, struggling, trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, and we live in a society that says you got to work harder, you got to work longer, you've got to, take another course, you've got, these, and that's not the truth. The truth is around the who we are while we're doing these things. It's not, we don't have to do more. We just have to show up better. And so I was always looking. And then came back to Australia in 2013 with my family. And it was so hard, that move. And the wheels fell off my marriage. And I don't even think it was to do with the trans bit. I think it was just to do with, we were like emotionally immature and under the pressure and the financial circumstances that we found ourselves in, we went in different directions and were like so unsupportive of each other, and it just like became intolerable. And I was trying to run my own business and had some success, but I'm still running it from a crappy old scarcity mindset, a forcing and pushing and getting all the ducks in a row. This is me, this is me, like, rather than, like letting myself free into the marketplace and ask the questions and stuff, I built the system first. I built the solution first, because that was my safety. That's what I knew. That's what my mindset was, build, and then sell it. And then no one bought it, did they? Because I did it backwards.
Yeah.
Don't so many of us do that? We try to build first because it's our safe place, because it's what we know. And
then people will also tell you to do that, though. People also tell you build. You got to do it this one way, and there's not one way to do it.
There's so not one way. Yeah. There's the Ryan way, and there's the Bobby way, and there's everyone else's way, and they're all right ways. Yeah. But then I said to my ex, I said, I got 4 things. It was 2018. I got 4 things. Can we have a chat? I said, I haven't got any money. I said, I want to get a divorce. I said, we were in Sydney at the time, Sydney, Australia. And I said, I want to stay around my family and see my children, and I'm changing gender. What do you want to talk about? But then I initiated the divorce proceedings, and it was like the best thing, really. And I moved interstate to care for my mum who had dementia. And that was a start of starting to find happiness. And this is COVID 2020, 21, starting to find happiness. But I'm still struggling to make money, still struggling to run my businesses. And then I reached out to an upline because I was in a multi-level marketing business and said, I'm having no success here. Do you know any coaches? And that led to the wonderful woman who is my coach now and has been for 3.5 years and has helped me. She's saved my life, I think literally, because I didn't know how to cope otherwise. She saved my life, shows me how to live my life, and believed in me all the way through, like this self-belief piece. Often we don't believe in ourselves, but we can borrow someone else's belief. And when someone else sees something in us that we can't see, and you trust them enough to think, well, she's a smart chick, she can. And that strength through that pulls me forward and still does. And now she's my friend. So I'm so delighted that we are able to navigate these two parts of our lives, this coaching container and friendship separately, and keeping the boundaries clean. And that's such a beautiful thing. And it's because of her that I'm up in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast, and I'm just loving it here, actually. And I'm starting to find my playfulness again, which I've lost for so long. Yeah.
Well, I loved how you just touched on that, of saying I had to borrow someone else's belief in me. Because I always tell everybody, usually the first step in gaining confidence is somebody else's belief in you before you ever start believing in yourself. Somebody else believes in you first.
It's been the best. It's been the best. Like I am happier than at any time in my life. I am fundamentally happy. And don't we all want that? And I feel loved. I feel I have someone, I'm a single woman. I live alone. I cook for myself. I spend a lot of time by myself. But knowing that there is someone in my life who cares for me, that is such a powerful thing emotionally, to be emotionally held, to find the emotional safety through connection. And it's something I've not had all through my marriage, really. And then my children don't talk to me, haven't seen them for 6 years, and it's really, really sad. But, they are grown up now. They make their own choices, and I am not responsible for the choices that they make. I am responsible for the choices that I make. A part of this journey has been about boundaries, about identifying what belongs to me and what doesn't belong to me, and not taking on other people's views, like they might say, you did this to me. Well, I didn't do anything to you. You did it to you, and when you say things like that, you just outsource your power to someone else. And I'm all about power, integrity, equanimity, balance, and earning my shit, and you own your shit. Yeah. It's been the most extraordinary journey. And so as a trans woman, I have this kick-ass body. I'm female, top to toe. My identity is so feminine. And the journey from living a life as a man with male traditions of emotional regulation, and how I used to show up and not be vulnerable, with my emotions, and have all this shaming around what I was able to admit to, like emotionally, and to cry and things like that. So that journey from that world to the world I inhabit now, and I don't think this is universal for all women, but the women that I spend my time amongst, my community, that's where we go. We go into vulnerability. We go into emotions. We talk about the real stuff that's going on inside of us without shame or judgment or suppression or making any of it wrong. And that shift and the emotional intelligence and emotional regulation that has come from that life as a man to this life as a woman, that has given me such power, such strength to handle what happens, what comes at me, to handle other people. It's what makes me go into the supermarket with a smile on my face and light up the room and emanate energy. And it's been the most extraordinary journey. And I've had such a beautiful landing and a welcome into the world of women as a woman. And I know there's a ton of crap going on in the US and around the world around trans people. And I think it's so hurtful and so unnecessary. And I think what it means is that we miss the deeper learnings from all of us and miss the lessons of courage that we see when somebody strives to be a different identity from the one that they were, identified as at birth, sort of thing. And how people like me, I'm a woman. I go out there, people see a woman. I have energy of a woman. I hold myself like a woman. And in many ways, I've always been a woman. And there are other people who are still on that journey, and they are literally courage walking. Like, can you imagine what it's like to go out into public knowing that you don't really pass, and imagine what other people might be thinking about you, and still you do it. Still you step out. Still you have the courage to do what we are all doing, actually, like trying to create our own identities and our own realities in whatever way that works for us. I think those lessons are really important for the world in what it looks like to be authentic, and what is the cost of inauthenticity. It's just massive. It's incalculable. Yeah, so I have strong views. Yeah.
So you were solo road tripping around across Australia, speaking to communities and organizations. Why did you start speaking?
Why did I choose speaking?
Yeah.
God, isn't it ironic though? This is the me who was not wanting to stand out, show up, or be seen. Literally, a lot of us do this. You're in a conference or something, and you want to ask a question, and you're just shaking before you put your hand up, and it's so easy not to. And that was me. So I was, like I mentioned, on the tube, not wanting to attract attention, and now. And now I'm 6 foot tall. I've got purple hair. I've got this great body, actually. And I stand in rooms and I speak with strangers. And it turns out I'm actually extrovert. I did a Myers-Briggs, was it Myers-Briggs thing? And then they do a percentage of extroversion, and apparently I'm 93% extrovert. But this me was always in me. I was always potentially this person. That's why I talk about human potential, what's locked inside of us, through conditioning and programming and life experiences. Why speaking? Because I have important messages to share. Because at the age of 65 now, I have gravitas, I have life experience, and finally I believe in myself enough to know that what I have to say is meaningful and makes a difference to people, and that my perspectives matter, my insight matters, that I have messages that you might not want to hear, but you need to hear. And also because I went on the road trip to build the muscle of running a speaking business, of going into rooms, going into the arena, facing the unknown and coping with it and learning from it and getting feedback and growing through it. And this has been, like in my life, I want to know what I'm capable of. And the only way I'm going to find that is at the edges, go into the discomfort, go into the uncertainty and the self-doubt and the fear. I've got to go there. And I think there's only three things that we need to be able to create the best of us, if you like. Did I express that well? They are imagination, like having a vision for beyond possibility, beyond what we can't think of. The imagination of where do I want to go? What is the vision I'm trying to create and why? The mindset, to be able to turn fear into fuel, to turn blame and judgment and less than into lessons and feedback, and to make it not about ourselves. There's a lot to mindset, of course. To be able to manage our nervous systems, to go from fight, flight, and fear into that level of calmness. There's a name for it. I forget the name of it, but there's a level of calmness when you are when your nervous system is not vibrating at that frequency, and you can calm yourself. These things. So this is the road trip. This is me, like building the muscle of a speaking business, which is not just about speaking, but it's about pitching and lining up diaries and making offers and the whole messiness of an entrepreneur running a business, and all of the things which are left undone, and the messiness of life. Yeah, so I want to be speaking on the biggest stages. This is a kind of a dream. Do you remember Freddie Mercury from Queen at Live Aid in 1986, I think, whatever it was, back there in Wembley Stadium in London, in front of 80,000 people and with millions of people around the world? Can you imagine what it feels like to stand on that stage? Can you imagine what kind of energy you have to hold the tension in all of that space? And I just get so excited about the possibility of who I would be to fill a room like that. And then I get excited about what is my dream, what is my vision that makes that the little bit. What is the 10x of that? What is the 100x of that? Oh, I just find this such an exciting idea. So speaking, I'm a good speaker. I'm good. I tell stories. I'm a storyteller. And stories are what we humans love because it bypasses our critical faculties and goes straight into connection, an emotional connection between me as a speaker and you as a listener. Telling stories. I love telling stories. And, in my life, I've done a lot of stuff now. I've been around, got a lot of stories, like for many people, growing older sucks, when you like lose some capacity or health reasons or something like that. But for me, I'm very fortunate because I'm healthy and fit. And what I find as I grow older is that I grow more and more wisdom, and I find more and more potential to join dots, to find synergies, to make patterns and meaning. And like virtually any conversation I have with someone has got a story that I can bring into it, like brings something that adds some richness to the experience. I just love this pattern making, and it only comes through experience, which comes through being around and living and doing. You can sit in the sofa and have no experience, or you can go out and experience life, which I love.
So how important has personal development and upgrading your mindset been for you then on your journey?
1,000,000%. Like the gender bit, it's like almost irrelevant. Like this is not my message. That like it just happens to be that in terms of change, transformation, transition, it's a real in your face one, and people like, fuck, like you did what? I can't imagine what it was like, but that's just a little bit of this. The big bit is if you change gender and put mindset in its place, like you lived like how with this lifetime of fear and controlling and safety and feeling less than and cheap. And like when my son was 4, I didn't feel I could afford to go and buy him a toy, and I so could, but it was all mindset. I've never been without money, but I've always feared being without money. And that if you take all of that thinking and put it in place of gender, like suddenly it's you. Suddenly it's like everyone has got like stories about their past, their parenthood, the traumas, the thing that happened to me kind of thing. So the mindset, I feel so, well, I use this language a lot, strong and powerful. I feel so strong in my mental capacity to cope and not go into fear, because all my life, like I wear a night guard when I sleep. Why? Because I have been grinding my teeth my whole life, and my dentist will tell you about it. But, and really quite recently, I would wake up in the morning shaking with fright because I was afraid for the future. I was afraid, that I wasn't going to fulfill my potential, that I was going to have to sleep under a bridge in a car or jump off one or something like that. I was, suicidal thoughts and things like that. But for me, it wasn't a gender thing. Lots of trans people have these sorts of thoughts, but it wasn't like that for me. Yeah, but it's the mindset, and I get triggered. I do. I'm human. I have emotions. Things happen, but I don't wallow in them for days as I used to, or months. It's an hour. I work through it. I have processes and strategies. I get triggered by something and I go into it. What happened? What did I make it mean? What was it in me that was triggered? What what was the payoff that I was going to get from behaving in a certain way, and what choice was I going to make? You know, the payoffs, you get to be right, you get to make someone else wrong, you know, you get to be in control. You know, these things that we run, these patterns we run that keep us safe and keep us in an identity that's familiar, and, you know, like when you give your power away to someone else because they did that thing to you, and then starting to shift that into, why was that thing for me? What was the gift in that? How do I grow through that? What choice am I going to make now? Who do I want to be? And then reconnect with my core values of love, peace, freedom, and joy. These are the things that drive me. You know, these are the filters that I put over my life. What would love say? What would freedom say? What would joy say? Mindset. You know, I think it should be taught in schools. I think it is the most fundamental tool that we should, all of us, adopt, you know, like work on. I think it would transform our relationships. It would transform the way that we need to put other people down to make ourselves feel better. It would transform, you know, the way that we look at other people, even other nations, you know, and ask the questions. Why are they doing what they're doing? You know, like put yourselves in other people's shoes. And, you know, I don't suppose I really want to talk about Iran right now.
Probably not.
Yeah, but, you know, like, I think the humanity can do better. I really think we can do so much better if we weren't so frightened of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is one book you would recommend for personal development or mindset?
A book. God. Well, I read a book recently by, he's an Australian author. His name's Jamin Fraser, Jaemin Fraser, Frazer, and he wrote a book called Unhindered. It's about insecurity, you know, like, and I just found it a really, really useful. I think even though I was familiar with the concept in it around, you know, like for example, you know, he's got some case studies in it, and he speaks, let's say, case study of such and such a young woman, and she's overweight, and like, he talks about how the weight isn't the problem, it's the belief system behind why the weight is a protection to, you know, let's say you got shamed at school sort of thing, and you tried running and people laughed at you, so you get fat, and then that becomes your protection, because no one after that, because you've got a reason why you can't run now, and it's a safe place to be, you know. So because this is an emotional insecurity to be able to handle the criticism of not being able to run, for example, you know. So I just found it a really useful book with practical tools. Yeah, so
That's interesting.
Yeah, but there are so many. There's so many books with unstuck, unhindered, untamed, unfucked, you know, like all of this stuff, you know, and it's all about this liberation of our authentic selves. And so I'll be writing one also, but it will be my story and my perspective, and you know, but like I say, it's not about gender, it's about connection with fellow human beings, you know, like, and what's in common, and our shared challenges, and what scares us, and strategies to go from where we are to where we want to go, because most of us are not living our ideal lives, are we? Most of us want more. And if we say we don't, then maybe we've given up on the idea of wanting more and that we're capable of having more. And I think that was such a travesty and such a waste. And if there's one thing I hate, it's waste. Wasted lives mostly. Not, it's not for me to judge, anyone else's life. But if you come to me and say, I want more, I believe there's more in me, there's a something I want to create, some business, some life, some whatever I want to, and then you say, but I'm stuck, I don't know how, then I'm interested, because there's a path. And even though we can't see the path always appears. Look at our lives. And like, I ask people, name 5 successes that you've had in your life, and they can't name 5. For God's sakes, like getting out of bed on time, that's a success. Living, breathing, driving the car, going to the shops, whatever it is, we just set the bar so high. We set our own bars so high we can't even jump over our own bars, and it's ridiculous. And why do we set the bar so high? Because we've got some belief system running that says, you're not worthy if you haven't, or you're not a success if you haven't. So it's just such a shame. And so as a coach, like your question about why do I speak? Well, speaking is coaching. For me, speaking is about, as a motivational speaker, it's about shifting someone from where they are to where they want to go, and then to where they need to go. And if I do it one-to-one, it's faster and more effective. If I do it in a room, if one thing drops, I'm happy with that. And then if I run an event with a room of like 20 or 50 people or something like that, it's more effective, but not as effective as one. So it's all motivating, moving people from one place to another place. And you can't move unless you start to become aware of where you are and the choices you're making. I really love that metaphor. I think it's I think there are many traditions of this story about the Indian and the brave and the 2 wolves, and the 2 wolves are fighting, and the chief asked the brave, 2 wolves are fighting in you, which one wins? And the brave says, I don't know, which one? He says, the one you feed. So it's the choices that we make, but you can't feed a different wolf unless you're aware another wolf exists. And there's a whole fucking wolf pack in there, an infinite number of pieces, but in terms of a binary, I can choose this or choose this. And so when I was waking up scared, and my neural pathways were going down the same path that they had for 60 years, that was how I thought. That was the pattern of thinking. Until, oh my God, there's another thought pattern. I can think a different thing. I can make a different choice. And then I can start focusing on what I wanted instead of what I didn't want. Like what you focus on, what it grows. Tony Robbins says something about that. And this is the mindset shift. This is the devotion to creating more empowering thought patterns and beliefs. Not just thought patterns, it's about in our bodies, in our emotional beings. But so that was like a massive penny drop moment for me. In my mindset, my personal development journey, there's daily work, but also big penny drop moments when clunk. Oh my God. And one of them was personal accountability. Taking responsibility for all of me and all of my outcomes and all of my life. Because if I don't take responsibility, then I'm outsourcing that power to someone else, to something else. Like the thing that happened to me. It's not my fault. Or the childhood trauma, like my alcoholic father, like what went on in our household with, police coming and knives and shit like that, but I can outsource my power to my childhood and say, that's the reason I am that I am. That's made me who I am today. There's nothing I can do about it. And when you believe that, there's nothing you can do about it. And that becomes your truth. It doesn't have to be true. You make a different truth. You can tell that story in different ways. You can find the gift in it. I recently had to go through a marital settlement legal situation, and I have ended up over $500,000 poorer than I was before. And I get to choose now. What does that mean? Do I say, oh shit, like this happened to me and my life is shit now and I'm 65 and single and there's nothing I can do about it and the rest of my life is going to be, like as a pauper, and I have to sleep in a tent or a car or something like that? Or do I say, bloody hell, that's a $500,000 lesson for me. There's a gift in that. What can I learn from that? How can I make that $500,000, which for me is quite a bit, how can I make that fuel for what I do now and make that $500,000 like a little road bump on the journey of life and use it to empower me more and more? And why wouldn't I choose to do it that way? Because I want to know who I'm capable of. How can I respond to that circumstance even more powerfully such that I resonate and vibrate in the world that attracts not 500,000 but 500 million? Oh, maybe that's a bit, I don't know. It's just energy. It's just a number. Like, how can you show up energetically in the world with such power and emotional vibration and call in the thing that is so big that it, I believe this is possible for all of us to resonate, vibrate, attract, manifest more. And how could I not believe that? How would that serve me? How would it serve anyone? So.
Great advice. So how can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can grab me while I'm out in the street. Yeah, I'm Bobby Barrington. So it's BOBBI, Bobby Barrington, BARRINGTON. So bobbybarrington.com. You find me there, and it's got links to my socials. I like LinkedIn a lot. I kind of never really got my head so much around Instagram, but I am there. I have people who help me get my stuff out. I'm on Facebook. I'm on a bit of TikTok, a bit of YouTube, but like this journey, I am not the final product. All of these things are building on building on building. And this time last year, I was in a very different place the year before. And this time next year, I'll be in a different place as well. So you get me as I am right now, messiness and everything, like imperfections. And I, as a sort of recovering perfectionist, like perfection is a sort of control, like it's a safe place that stops you actually taking the risk, like my posts, I'm very wordy and stuff, and I do make them like really perfect and just like beautiful and stuff like that, and it slows me down, but it doesn't matter to people. They just want my energy and stuff. So when you reach out to me, maybe I don't respond because I've missed that. Maybe like I'm not perfect, my life's not perfect. I just do the best I can with what I've got, and who can do better than that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So final question.
Go.
What is one piece of advice you would like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
Well, I think I have to say what I was saying about choices. Like, first of all, that word adversity. How can we reframe that word into gift? We grow through adversity. Adversity is, I've only got to be me and you've only got to be you through the adversity. Like we put so much meaning on this label that's adversity. What if we were to loosen the grip it has on us and relax that and say, actually, what is the truth of this? What is the meaning I'm giving to it? And am I sure that's true? Am I really sure? How else can I look at this circumstance? Like, what choices am I making? Like, I do NLP. I'm an NLP practitioner, and so the linguistic part of it, like the stories we tell ourselves, the language we speak to ourselves in. If you keep saying, I'm facing adversity, like, of course I'm facing adversity. That's what life is all about. We're all facing adversity. We're all facing challenges. And you look back at your life so far and all of the challenges you've overcome, all of them. And here we are. And we make that seem like insignificant. But the ones in the future we make like really big. They're not big. They're just things that we haven't learnt yet or been able to, like move through yet. Like, I think that's, I hope that's helpful. I'm looking at the languaging around adversity. Let's call it something else. Let's call it opportunity. Let's call it a gift. Let's call it something beautiful to embrace. Maybe that like softens the grip it has on us. Yeah.
Yeah, great advice. Well, Bobby, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with all of us. It's really been a pleasure having you here.
It's an absolute delight, Ryan. I feel I did quite a lot of the talking here.
It's all right. It was all about you and your story. So, well, guys, that is going to be all the time we have here today.
Brilliant.
Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.